This is Lama Tantrapa. Thank you for joining us for this masterclass. Today, I'm delighted to introduce to you Marisa Cranfill. She is one of the best known Qigong teachers in the world, with one of the top 3 YouTube channels dedicated to Qigong worldwide. And also the creator and teacher of YOQI, which brings together the ancient wisdom of yoga with the energy arts of Qigong. Thank you so much, Marisa, for being with us today and for sharing what you want to share with us.
Thank you, Lama, for having me. It's a very important time for us to share this wisdom and talk about it.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we wanted to share with our viewers today is the subject that is not very popular or not often broached by Qigong teachers, but it deserves much more attention. And that's the subject of mental health and Qigong. It's something that most of us can relate to. Most of us are subject to stress, at least. So let me ask you why you chose this topic for your masterclass.
Well, it kind of just arose spontaneously this week with what happened in the Middle East, but with what was already taking place, in Ukraine and what's always been taking place. Actually, we've always had wars. There's always been instability in the world. Even with COVID, that was a whole nother ballgame. So I'm sitting here in my family home. It's so peaceful. The ocean is here. The weather is perfect. Life is perfect. And I'm sitting here, but yet I know that everything around me and this collective consciousness, collective mind, they're suffering. And, you just open the news and I see dead babies in Israel, dead babies in Palestine. And it's like, it's overwhelming and it's a lot to bear. And if you don't have the tools, if a person doesn't have the tools in their life to create positive mindsets and stability in their life, when you add on the daily stress of the average person and financial, economic instability, climate change, all these things going on, it can really affect people hardcore right now. There's a lot of anxiety, insomnia, and depression. And I can feel it. I can feel it in the collective, like this mental disease that's present. And so I think it's really important that we share these tools and talk about what is mental health and how Qigong can help support mental health and how we can also help our communities with Qigong.
Yes, indeed. And that is a really important topic. And as you mentioned, we need to understand what mental health even means. So perhaps that would be a good thing to begin our exploration with. Can you share with us what you mean by mental health?
For me, mental health, it's simply our ability as human beings to function. I mean, we have to have a healthy mind to function in society, right? If we don't, this is seen as, a schizophrenic or somebody, they have to go to a mental hospital because they can't control their mind and just be functioning in society. The World Health Organization defines it as, mental health is a state of well-being that enables people to cope with the stresses of life, realize their abilities, learn well and work well, and contribute to their community. So mental health disorders that we're familiar with, the common ones are anxiety. This arises from stress and mental disease, and also it affects our energy, our kidneys, and cortisol, right? And then there's depression, which is usually the result of the feeling when you can't cope or can't do anything about the situation, you kind of give up. And when the energy gets so low that you don't even feel like you have enough chi energy to help you with the situation. So there's this feeling of helplessness and depression. And then insomnia, this is related to mental health. And I come across so many people that are having a hard time sleeping even since COVID. And then there's emotional distress. So how do we regulate our emotions? This is related to mental health as well, and mood swings. So, and then you get into the more extreme disorders like mania, schizophrenia, bipolar, and those things. But even like OCD, PTSD, trauma, it's all related to mental health and having a healthy spirit.
Absolutely. Essentially, what we're talking about is functioning as a human being without too much of the wheels spinning, so to speak, on the inside and not getting anywhere. One of the ways that we spin our wheels, as you mentioned, is anxiety. Well, let me ask you, what is your way of viewing anxiety in terms of energy process? Like, what's the Qigong perspective on it?
The Qigong perspective of anxiety is when the heart becomes too excessive, too hot and excited. It's disturbed, actually. The Shen spirit is disturbed. And in Chinese, which we'll get to in a bit, but we can jump in now if you'd like, is this idea that the mind is actually what they call Shen. Shen, in Chinese, Shen is spirit. And we have big spirit, which is the big Shen, and then we have the heart spirit. And all the organs have their own aspect of consciousness or mind, spirit. And when the spirits don't root in the organs, they take root in the blood. And when the Shen doesn't root in the heart, because the heart, if it becomes too hot, it's not habitable or pleasant for the spirit to root, then it flies out. And this feeling of, you know the feeling, or you might know people with their like losing their mind, or where did you go? Like when you feel like you're out of the body, you're not inside at home at rest. And this feeling is anxiety, because it's a very anxious state when you're not at home in yourself, when you're not rooted in your heart, when your spirit, your consciousness is kind of floating out. And that's this anxious state of panic, that's based in fear. And so you have this connection between the Shen and the kidneys, right? The root, the Mingmen of door of life, but you need to have this root in the blood. Yeah. So that's more of an energetic. So we want to bring the spirit in.
What you're describing sounds very much like a dissociative disorder. And yeah, I can imagine people who suffer from a dissociative disorder can experience more anxiety than average. Now, when you mentioned Shen or spirit rooting in the heart, can you explain exactly what you mean by these words? Like, can you paint a picture with words what exactly you're talking about? It sounds rather metaphysical or and doesn't make a lot of sense when you're saying, oh, the heart is too hot, the Shen cannot abide in the heart because it's uncomfortable, so it cannot get rooted. None of it makes any sense to a Western audience, so please explain.
Yeah, it does sound metaphysical, because often the word spirit in English can mean many things, right? It could even mean a ghost, or it can mean the Holy Spirit, like in Christianity. But in Chinese, the character Shen, it has a lightning bolt, which represents like the power of God. When it would reveal itself to the ancient people, they saw lightning and it was like, oh, that is divine power. And it contains another part of the character is offering. So this is the spirit, the translation or the understanding of this word Shen is an offering to the divine or communion with the divine. So our spirit represents not just the spirit, that the essence within us that gives us life, that gives us consciousness to just be alive and awake and connected to the world, but also our connection to source, to where we came from in the universe. And this is why we have this bigger Shen, which is our connection to the original Shen, the Yuan Shen of the universe. And we have the smaller Shen, which are the spirits that root in the organs. The story,
of understanding universe. So the holographic way of looking at the small Shen or heart mind is kind of expressing or reflecting the bigger Shen. Is it right?
Right. It helps us take the big Shen is like the big I or the one, the source that we are all one and a part of. It's the greater power of our understanding. Um, yeah, I was reflecting on it myself, and with the situation, for instance, one moment when you read the news, it's like all this turbulence and all this fear and this terrible things just happening, and it makes you feel like, what can I do? I can't do anything about this situation. It's so horrible. It's so sad. So that those emotions that start to arise, they're like waves in the ocean. They disturb the little Shen, because this is the aspect of our spirit that's connecting to the world. It's the smaller I. It's the I experience of consciousness of the world. But this bigger Shen, this is like the ocean under the waves. So it's the deeper understanding that beneath all this turbulence and horrible things that are going on in the world, we are all one. And there's still this interconnectedness of being human, and that I can still tap into that higher power of understanding and be at peace. So we have this ability through our Shen to tune into the great peace that exists, that connects all of us, and then also to come in and then connect to the world and make a choice of how we're going to work with these emotions that are arising in the heart.
So, in other words, if I understand you correctly, the difference between the big Shen and the heart mind, the smaller Shen, is essentially like the higher self versus the little self who we identify with. Is that right?
Yeah, it's like this. And the doesn't mean that the small Shen is like this ego, like that it's bad, it's good. The small Shen is necessary because it's how we connect to the world, and it's how we connect to everyone. It's how we express art. It's how we are dedicated to something that we're doing in our life. It's how we connect, it's how we love. So it's very beautiful aspect of our spirits. And it's not just the heart spirit that's part of this big Shen, actually all the spirits. So the story is helpful that they in the Tao is that when the sperm and egg unite, that's yin and yang, that spark of life force comes. And that's when the Shen from the great Yuan Shen, the big Shen implants into the embryo here. And now the energy is moving and growing, and that big Shen separates into 5 lights. So they didn't even really call them spirits, they called them light, and consciousness is light. And that came into first the heart. So we had the red light, and the liver, the green light, the lungs, the white light, the spleen, the golden light, and the kidneys, the blue light. And each of your yin organs, which are blood-filled organs, they contain these different aspects of spirit, which is really consciousness. So these are different aspects of your mind consciousness. But the emperor of all the spirits is still the heart. It's the master, because the heart is the most yang of all the organs, of all the elements. And yang connects to heaven, right? So this is our main bridge or channel to the yang of heaven, the Yuan Shen.
Interesting cosmology manifested automatically in physical body. And this is something that I don't know how many of our viewers are familiar with, but this is kind of a standard way of looking at it in TCM and traditional Chinese medicine. Well, of course, in TCM, the mind does a lot of things. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the functions of the heart mind are?
Yeah, the functions of the mind in TCM is heart mind involve many, many, many things. So the first and foremost, it's consciousness. So your awareness. So awareness is knowing what you're doing when you're doing it. It's knowing what you're being when you're being it. So it's pure knowing. And then thinking. So thought is related to the mind, emotions and memories, cognition, intelligence, sleep, communication, feelings, even the senses are related to the heart mind. And it doesn't mean that these functions aren't related to other organs as well too. Like memory can also be affected by the kidneys and the spleen, and intelligence can be affected by the DNA, the kidneys, and the brain health. But the heart is really the master of these functions. Yeah, and so if the heart spirit is disturbed in any way, or if the heart organ or the heart blood in Chinese medicine is deficient or excess, then these functions are going to be affected. So obviously, if you don't eat enough and you don't get enough rest, then the mind is dull, right? The mind doesn't think as clear, and it's difficult to do work or communicate.
Right. Well, for most of our viewers, the question probably arises, well, how about the brain? We're talking about the heart and spleen and liver and kidneys and whatnot. Most of the people in the West are familiar with the brain function, most dedicated to consciousness, memory, and so on. So can you enlighten us a little bit about the connections between the spirits that we're talking about and more of a Western way of understanding mind-body physiology and how consciousness arises?
Yeah, so in Chinese medicine, they recognize the brain quite later on in the development of their medicinal system. So they do recognize the brain and its functions, but it's more of a filter of information. So our senses are constantly seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, all these senses, and we're filtering information in, and the brain is like the filter, but the heart is the consciousness that understands and that feels. So the brain doesn't feel feelings. It doesn't feel emotions, but it can filter them, right? And so brain health, of course, is important because then we have the pineal gland, pituitary gland, all the hormones are in the brain that regulate sleep function and so on. So of course, that plays a big role. And there's a connection between, now we know, the brain and the heart. So, the brain, the waves, so you can create a resonant frequency between your brain and your heart. So the middle dantian, upper dantian are very connected. But the interesting thing is that this large shen that we're talking about, not the heart shen, that actually resides in the brain. It's the upper dantian. So we transform our energy when we do the work in Qigong. We're transforming Jing to Qi to Shen. We're transforming the energy here in the heart center. This is the Qi. We're transforming it to Shen in the heart, and then it rests and raises up this higher energy frequency of refined Qi to the brain. And that's wisdom. So wisdom is the all-knowing, right? Knowing what to do, when to do it, and what's the truth for you. Yeah. And so this is not necessarily the brain, but it's the energy in the brain, the Shen.
Very well. Well, we can dig a lot deeper into it, but for the sake of brevity of our masterclass, I would like to perhaps dive a little bit more into the relationship between emotions on one hand and mental health on the other hand. How would you say different emotions affect the heart mind?
Different emotions affect mental health.
Yes.
Oh yeah. So every emotion, different emotions resonate with different organs. If you're familiar with the 5 elements, the 5 organs, and their corresponding emotions. So for instance, the liver is harmed by anger. And the liver spirit, if we're angry, the liver spirit, it's difficult for the hun to root in the liver. So again, it will flee, it will leave the liver. And also the organs can cultivate virtues. So the virtue of the liver is kindness and generosity. So when we cultivate these positive virtues, we're nourishing the organ, we're creating a beautiful garden or a beautiful space for that spirit to take root and to live and nourishing that organ. So the emotions of each organ affect them directly, but the heart is affected by every emotion because the organs, they don't feel emotions. They're just affected by them. The heart is the only organ that feels. And for this reason, it's very affected by all emotions: worry, doubt, fear, anger, depression, sadness. But the major emotions that affect the heart are emotions that are more yang in nature. So hatred, impatience, very hot, the anxiety emotions, and especially excitement as well. So we don't think about excitement and joy as much as harmful emotions, but in Chinese, excitement really damages the heart, the mind, and the spirit because the heart is yang, it's hot, and it's easily to become excessively hot, right? So we want to keep the heart and the mind calm. This is the virtue, and how to protect your heart and promote mental health is to really focus on calming down and clearing heat. If you do get emotionally agitated or a rise of heat, it's learn how to clear that heat out. There's many techniques in Qigong using sound, breath, movement, body tapping to clear that heat and then create a very calm, peaceful state and calm the heart, Shen.
Yeah, perhaps a lot of people would say, well, calm, peaceful state of mind is boring because they are used to excitement, they're used to entertainment, they go to amusement parks, pay money for being amused. What we want to understand is that there are certain healthy levels of any type of emotion, and we can easily cross over the boundary between healthy and not so healthy. Of course, it's not black and white. There are many different degrees of how healthy certain emotions are. So we can't say, well, excitement is bad. It's just simply being overly excited perhaps will cause more harm than good. On the other hand, without excitement, life is boring or dull. So essentially, we're not trying to tell our viewers, look, just be calm and peaceful and feel nothing and everything is going to be just hunky-dory. It's not our message.
Yes, of course. No. Everything in moderation. And also, it's about not holding on to anything. So understanding that things arise and then let them go. So excitement arises and then excitement goes. What can tend to happen is, and I've experienced this, let's say you have a big something the next day, whether it's, I have to wake up at 4 a.m. to do a big shooting, in somewhere in the desert or something, or you have a flight to catch, or you're just really excited. Maybe it's a big event. And the mind is just thinking and thinking and thinking about, I'm so excited for this. I'm so excited for this, that you can't sleep, right? This is an example of overexcitement. And then, of course, if there's nothing wrong with parties. My mom's actually like a party animal, and that's her nature. So she thrives off it. And without parties, she would be depressed. So, and she puts on amazing parties. The thing is if you party too much and don't get enough rest, then what happens, right? You hit the wall and collapse, get sick. So yeah, it's all about balance.
In the sense that you burn yourself out because you overdo something, if it is even something that you use to self-medicate yourself against depression or sadness. There may be millions of reasons why people throw parties, but essentially it's an attempt to celebrate something, celebrate life, celebrate certain accomplishments, celebrate some anniversaries of something or birthdays or what have you. That's a healthy and an ambiguously beneficial thing, as long as it's done in moderation. I remember living in the former Soviet Union, where the parties were like the whole year or most of the year goes really dull and not particularly exciting. And then all of a sudden, okay, now we are throwing a big party, and like you eat too much, you drink too much, you don't get enough rest, or all kinds of other excesses happen during the party. Whether it happens just once a year or many times a year, that's the big question too. When you talking about anxiety and insomnia, that kind of makes total sense. These are kind of stereotypical mental issues. Now, how about some other mental health disorders, for example, mania or depression? How would you address them with the help of Qigong?
Well, depression is usually comes towards the end of the cycle where the qi is deficient. So when the burnout happens, because yeah, there's this feeling of low energy and that I can't do anything to help myself or change the situation, and I, kind of give up. And it's very low. It's like this heavy, low feeling. And even insomnia is actually attributed to deficiency as well, like severe insomnia. Whereas when it's more of an excess, it can just be difficult to sleep, but eventually fall asleep. But yeah, deficiency for depression. And this is coming when
the issues like depression and mania, for example, often go hand in hand. As a matter of fact, that's what we often refer to as manic depressive disorder. And as you mentioned, there are certain cycles, there are certain phases to it. So when the person is manic, they can't sleep. They're too agitated or too excitable. So obviously insomnia happens, and then they get burned out and depression follows.
Right. Yeah, so excess leads to deficiency, and then the blood becomes deficient and weak blood. And blood is very important in Qigong, in Chinese medicine as well. And the spirits, they root in the blood. So when the blood is weak, and then again, the spirits don't root, and your feeling of being with yourself and your healthy mind is weak, and we lose connection with source. And when we lose connection with source, every time, that's when the negative mindset starts to come in, because we become very dualistic in thinking, and very limited. It's hard to see the bigger picture of all there is and all the beauty that there is. So yeah, again,
is a mental disorder in its own right, probably responsible for most of human suffering.
Yeah.
According to Buddha Shakyamuni, the founder of Buddhism, the main cause of suffering is ignorance. Most likely ignorance of karma, the law of cause and effect. But I would actually venture to say that there is another really important cause, and that is the dualistic black and white way of thinking, where everything is polarized into good and bad. And so that creates a very black and white perception of reality, and a very dualistic way of reacting to things. So the fight or flight, basically.
Yeah.
And that's how people experience stress.
Right. This idea of a separate self, the ignorance of that we are a separate self. And that causes the opinions, I need to be right, and the anger. And now I'm angry because you won't listen to me and you don't agree with me. And this is happening constantly, right, on social media and in the world, and then taking sides. And and then it just is a vicious cycle of it leads to war, basically. Okay, now I'm so angry, I'm going to kill you because I'm right and you're wrong. And then that trauma cycle just keeps turning and turning and turning, and we're living in it. And that's why I think this topic is so important, because it's being with your spirit and connecting to your higher power of understanding through the Shen, and understanding how to balance this that we can live in the world and connect to one another as individuals, but also as human, all human, one race of human beings, a collective humanity.
Absolutely. Yes, that's a beautiful vision of creating peace on earth. So I think whatever we can do to make that dream come true would be very, very helpful. Now, before we go into the specific practices that would allow us to achieve that, let me ask you if there are any classic references to addressing mental health in Chinese texts or some other Qigong works. Maybe not only Qigong, you also practice YOQI, which is kind of yoga and Qigong hooked up together and had a baby. And obviously the yoga side of things, it comes from the Indian subcontinent. Maybe that is a good source of wisdom as well. Now, what would you say about the classic approaches to dealing with stress and similar mental health issues?
Well, most all the texts, in China, they go back to the emperor's book of internal classic medicine, and these Ling Shu scrolls, these ancient, 1,000 years old, over scrolls that were already talking about this and how to keep a calm heart. Calmness was the number one. And very similar to what we're talking about is don't engage in arguments, stay open-minded, be cheerful, moderate your desires. So desire has always been seen, and understood as something that's very clinging and brings suffering and causes suffering, because we can never completely fulfill the desire. There's always something more to desire. And cultivating awareness. This is key. The Shen is our conscious mind, right? So the more we bring our awareness back to the awareness, the more we become aware of just being aware and being able to just observe everything that's arising, the emotions, the desires, the fears, anything that's coming up, and being just present. So this is the practice of meditation, which is what these traditions are teaching us to do. And they say, limit the desires and limit the anger, be tolerant, have a community that supports these things, and selfless service. So do good for others, and take this practice not just for yourself, but actually be kind, right? And share this kindness and support and love. So you're spreading this energy around. And that is very nourishing for the heart spirit, because the heart spirit needs connection. It wants love and connection. And how we connect and love is with others and doing beautiful things, not through fighting. Yeah.
Well, nowadays, a lot of people also learn how to connect with others through fighting, and hence and various other applications of Qigong. One of the things that we learn is how even in fighting, we can experience some degree of peace. Like, okay, that sounds Zen-like, but you already started talking about bringing awareness to awareness. So that's a pretty Zen-like statement in itself. Let's go a little bit deeper into that and realize that we can experience nirvana in the midst of samsara, meaning experience the state of freedom from suffering in the midst of the world of suffering, where babies are being blown to bits by bombs or by terrorists. And it's not like we are not loving the babies and don't care if they're alive or dead, but we're not attached even to our own life in terms of freedom from fear. Well, those people who are not attached to their own lives and they're free of fear will be making fearless decisions, as opposed to those people who are attached and they will be making fearful decisions. Well, this stands to reason that the fearless decisions would most likely be leading us to experience life more fully and more abundantly.
Exactly.
What's
And lead us to creative solutions, right? New
Yes,
creative
indeed.
solutions that we've not thought of before. Yeah.
Because we're not afraid of leaving the rut that perhaps we were stuck in that was leading us according to a certain path. And if we think outside the box, well, we're no longer afraid of stepping outside of this well-trodden path and discover some new path or open our horizons, as it were.
Yes.
About the practices, what kind of Qigong practices do you feel would support our mental health?
Oh, there's so many. In the system that I teach, the YOQI method, I don't combine the yoga and qigong much together. I separate them, so I teach like a yin yoga, and I will bring qigong into it. And qigong is mostly qigong flow. We will do a little yoga postures, but the method itself I base on the 6 phases of qi flow. So in this method, we look at what we want to transform and how to transform it. So, for example, if you have a heart deficiency, if there's depression, then we know that we need to nourish the qi because that qi is deficient. There's not a lot of energy, right? And the heart is deficient. So we would focus more on tonifying practices in qigong, more of practices that nourish the energy and the body, like self-massage and calling back the spirit, bringing the energy in, palms usually facing the body, right, to hold the qi and bring the qi in for healing. Whereas if it's more of an anxiety, of frustration and anger and impatience, of a hot condition, like an excess, too much heat, then that needs purged. So that needs cleared. And we have Qigong practices such as you can tap on the heart one and tap down to quell the liver qi and drop the heat, or make the healing sounds like and releasing that heat. So 6 healing sounds are wonderful to clear emotional vibration and pent up heat. And then in the end, it's always good to circulate the fire meridians, expanding the heart with arms out and working with pericardium and also kidneys, because we want to balance fire and water, right? Fire and water always yin and yang in the body, and that's the heart and the kidneys, and they work together and they need to be balanced. So you can do qigong flows that incorporate water and fire, and they're actions of qi. So fire is expanding, water is sinking, and so I teach a lot of different flows. One of them is like Big Bear Catches a Fish. This one's really nice. It's on YouTube. It's on the Circulate Qigong to Circulate video on YouTube. And this one we balance the earth, the fire and the water all together, which is so great for this balance of the mind. Yeah.
Nice.
And then lastly, the inner smile. That was the one I wanted to mention. We could do a little bit of that if we have time.
Why not? This is something that I believe everyone would benefit from if they learn how to smile to themselves on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Would you care to lead us through this practice now?
Sure, I can do that.
That would be lovely.
So if we can do it seated, so you just find your comfortable seated position. Make sure both feet are flat on the floor and the sit bones are evenly placed on the chair, the weight. And let's just start by tapping a little bit. You can make a claw and tap here on the ribs. So waking up the lower dantian and the spleen and the liver and all this area, and inhale through the nose, blow out the mouth. It's really important to have a strong foundation of the mind. The mind is rooted in the qi and the jing. And if our energy is weak, the mind will be weak because the energy is the foundation. Good. So now relax and notice how you feel down there. And then
fabulous.
tap on, huh?
I feel fabulous down there.
I'm tapping now on the below the navel. So this is the dantian.
You do it usually
Before,
with one?
Sorry?
You usually do it with one hand or with both?
One hand. Yeah, so like just tapping here.
Yeah.
And then you can hold both fingers here and just like tuning into your dantian. Again, dropping the mind down into the abdomen and feeling your center, your root. And now we come up to the CV17. So this point for a man is right between the nipples. For a woman, it's a little bit higher because we have breasts. So it's this sensitive point on the sternum. You can massage this. This is a great point to tonify the chi and tonify the heart and the pericardium. And it's actually the portal to your middle dantian. You can use both fingers or one. And then hold your fingers here, press in. And now massage the whole chest. So I like to dig the fingertips in, massage the ribs. If there's any tension, right? When we get tight emotionally, pent up in the chest, this area can feel tight.
And when we're talking about emotional tension, any particular emotions that are associated with particular tensions in the body? Or is this not something that you address?
Well, I don't talk about it much because I don't feel like everybody's different. And I like to give people a chance to just experience what's coming up for them. There are specific emotions with the organs that we'll get into with the inner smile. But now we'll do a sound. So massage your chest up and out and make the ha sound. And this will release heat from anger and patience. You can massage your breasts. Women, it's very good to clear the breast energy with the heart energy from emotions. We hold even emotional vibrations get held in our breasts, and men too. And then hold your hands over your chest and feel the energy nice and smooth. You can even brush down the chest and just showing you a few little techniques. I make the ha sound to clear heat, to calm down. This calms down. Yeah. And then relax and notice how your chest feels. And finally, the upper dantian in the brain. So tap here on underneath the eyes, on the cheekbones. So stress manifests often as tension. And we can hold a lot of tension in the face. This is where we express ourselves and connect to other people. You can blow out the mouth to clear and purge. And then the forehead, massage the forehead. Again, clearing out any tension. You can massage all the way to the hairline. Place your thumbs on your temples. Notice if there's any tension here. And then tap on the mid-eye. So I like to use my ring finger and middle finger.
You're talking about the
and
third
blowing
eye?
out. Hmm?
Did you say
I
the
don't
third
use
eye?
my index. Sorry?
Did you say the third eye?
Yeah, the mid-eye, the Tianmu. Yeah, tapping here. So when there's stress, the mid-eye shuts down, right? Becomes very tense. So often if you go to acupuncture, they'll stick a needle right in your third eye, in your mid-eye, yin tongue point, to clear stress. And this is our intuitive center, our intuition. So relax and then breathe into your mid-eye. And finally, tap on your crown. So if you put your thumbs on the tips of your ears and then connect your fingers, it's around the soft point on your top of your head. This is the Baihui, and this is your connection to the universe. It's the top of the central meridian. So hold the middle fingers here. So we want to have a clear, open channel to our Yuan Shen, to the universal Shen. And press in. And now as you release your fingers, it's like you're a whale and you're breathing through your crown. Just relax your hands down. So this is a really nice way to open up the body and prepare yourself to go into a more tonifying practice like the inner smile. So I'll do a short version. We're not going to go through all of the steps, but mostly just the heart. I would like to bring you into your heart spirit today, not all the organs. So we start the inner smile first by visualizing, connect to your mid-eye and visualize a beautiful sunset. So close your eyes and picture the sun, the light shining on the water. And breathe this light in the mid-eye. And feel the light shine on your face, and it brings a smile to your face. So allow the corners of your lips to rise up. And feel the smiling energy spread through your eyes. Breathe in more light through the mid-eye. Mix it with the smiling energy. And feel this light shine through your brain, relaxing the mind, relaxing the brain, and spreading through your neck into the heart. And if it helps, you can even visualize something that makes you smile, like a puppy dog or a kitten, or something your best friend says that makes you laugh. Just whatever arouses smiling energy inside you. You want to create this impulse of smiling. And feel that smiling energy spread through the heart organ. And become aware of this life essence within you, this spirit that responds when you smile. This spark of joy, this spark of life, this is your Shen, your spirit. So place your hands now over the heart and smile at your heart. Be grateful. You can say, thank you, heart. Thank you for all the work you do for me. I love you, heart. And notice how your heart responds when you give it this love and attention. And then you can massage the heart. So just rub up and around to the left, massaging your heart spirit, nourishing the Shen. And visualize red light growing in your heart. It's like sunlight shining on a red rose. And you're growing the virtues of appreciation, love, and compassion. So feel this red light glowing in your heart, and the Shen is happy. And we won't do all the organs, so we'll just, to finish and close, we always want to ground and store our energy. So draw the hands down to your abdomen. Just bring them down over your navel. And feel that warmth sinking down, connecting to your dantian. Take some deep breaths into your dantian. And notice how you feel. Do you feel calmer, more at peace?
Definitely. Calmer, more in peace.
Good. Lovely. Thank you. The quick inner smile.
Thank you so much, Marisa. It's been a
Yeah.
lovely practice and a great masterclass in exploring how Qigong can help with mental health. So for our viewers who enjoyed exploring this topic and want to dive deeper into developing greater inner strength, I just want to suggest exploring our online course called Harmonious Strength Training. And that's something that we integrate into the practice of Qigong in a variety of different ways. And it's a traditional method of training for Shambhala warriors. So those folks who were protectors of the ancient kingdom of Shambhala, where Tibet is located now, were tough as nails, but they were not angry or forceful. They were powerful and impervious to stress. So that's what we want to learn, how to develop that kind of inner strength as well as physical strength. And in the healthy body, you can find healthy spirit. So that's something that I want to invite our viewers to explore. Please go to harmoniousstrengthtraining.com. Check it out. You will never be the same. Thank you, Marisa, once again, for a wonderful class. I look forward to our further masterclasses and other events.
Thank you. Yeah. Namaste.